We're not recording.
Okay.
Welcome to PB Machine, your tri-weekly podcast, maybe, featuring Mark Keys and Ben Tormey. I've finally pressed the record button, so hopefully you'll get this one. Now, I'm pretty sure if Ben could reach the internet and punch me in the face, he probably would, but he can't, so he's not gonna. Ben, do you want to do what you just did and introduce what we're talking about? I reassure you, are recording.
Please, Mark, please record. What we've been doing in the last 50 attempts to record this podcast, so we were talking about overanalysis, overthinking, and the kind of paralysis by analysis phenomena, which I see a lot with some of my clients and just people who ask me questions who I don't work with directly. And essentially it's when people have this idea that there's an optimal program, an optimal diet out there, and if they could only just find that program or that diet, they would suddenly get the results that they haven't been getting up until this point. And what they're looking for is something off the shelf that they can just take and run with and magically transform their progress. So it'll be someone who's, for instance, been following, let's say, a basic sort of full body routine and then finds out about some fancy periodization program, or they run Smolov or something, and they think that will be the key to making progress where they haven't been making it before. And people get too focused on small details instead of looking at the big picture and looking at general trends. So they think, okay, so what's the optimal macronutrient ratio, instead of focusing on the kind of feedback loop they should be developing to make the right decisions to determine the macronutrient targets that will work for them. So we were talking about this in the in the episode we didn't record, but you brought up the point that it's about decision making rather than being able to predict everything in advance, run some sort of simulation, plug things into a formula. And the best example I can give of this is when people say, well, how many calories should I be eating to lose fat, and roughly how much fat can I expect to lose, and what macronutrient ratios should I shoot for? And I'll say, well, okay, the best process for determining the number of calories you should be eating is just to make a rough estimate. You can use a very simple sort of multiplier of body weight rather than plugging numbers into a complicated formula, and then just track your body weights for a week or two. Now, if it's going down, you're in a deficit. If it's going up, you're in a surplus. And if you're staying about the same, then it's maintenance. And then you can just make decisions based on that. And then with macronutrients, you can play around with protein, carbs, and fat. I mean, you can start off with a reasonable ballpark figure for protein and play around with the ratio of carbs to fat to make up your remaining calories, and then just see what you respond best to in terms of your training, in terms of your progress. So I personally believe that, especially when you coach people, that it's much more about decision-making processes rather than learning specific templates, if you like, for, this is what you do if you want to lose fat, so you follow this set of macronutrient ratios, use this formula for calories. It's about learning how to make good decisions rather than learning lots of facts about fat loss or facts about strength training. And it's the decision-making process that makes you good at what you do if you're an individual just training on your own or if you're coaching someone.
Yeah, beforehand on the episode that we definitely didn't record, I was talking about, I used the example of someone who wanted to run the London Marathon. So maybe this person's coming from any kind of background. Maybe they're an ex-rugby player, an ex-football player. Maybe they're a desk jockey. Maybe they're a fat person who wants to lose weight. And to lose weight, they want to exercise. They want to exercise, but to exercise, they decided they wanted a goal, which is a great idea. They've booked the London Marathon because fuck it, why not? They've got donors. They're kitted and ready to go. So to do a marathon, obviously, you can't rock up and do it. You got to train for it. So to train for it, they start running. Maybe they run 3 times a week. Maybe they just run till they can't. Like they'll have to walk. Maybe they go running for an hour. During that hour, they run X distance, walk X distance. Over time, they try to run the whole hour. Then after they can run for an hour, maybe within that hour, they start deciding, okay, now I can do that. Maybe I should start paying attention to what distance I'm running in that hour. Maybe 8-10 weeks in, they're covering, I have no idea what would be good in an hour, but let's say they can do like 10k in an hour. I don't know if that's ludicrous. Maybe, I fuck it. Let's say they can do 10k in an hour. Let's not get bogged down here. They can do 10k in an hour. So they've decided, right, the marathon's in 4 or 5 weeks. I would like to build up to a marathon in my training. So over 3 weeks, they build up to a full marathon. They take a week off, and then they go and do the London Marathon. Maybe they find out that during that marathon, I was not prepared for that at all. It was completely different to what I thought it was. I was running on grass when I should have been running on concrete. I was too heavy for the marathon. Now got a knee tendinopathy. Blah blah blah. Like they've done something, and from that doing it, they get feedback. And the feedback is they were ill prepared. They were well prepared. They're injured. They're not injured. They enjoyed it. They didn't enjoy it. They're talking to their mates who, and someone just got back to my Facebook comment from Saturday. Cheers, pal.
Please respond.
Please respond. This time it's a virtual rose. Next time it'll be a real one. Yeah, like, you get feedback from doing shit, but if you're not doing shit, you're not getting feedback, and if you're not doing shit consistently, then you don't get consistent feedback. If you don't get consistent feedback, you can't change anything. Without consistency, or consistently engaging in something, like, even just going, like, if you want to, like, get stronger, just simple thing of going to the gym on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday at the same time, and doing the same lifts each day, like Monday's chest day, Wednesday squat day, Friday's deadlifting day, and you do random shit within those sessions, you don't actually follow a program, don't do anything, at least you're consistently doing something, you're in a habit, you're engaging with something, and you're doing it. And then from then, we can refine the process. Now you got a bench day, you have a squat day, you have a deadlift. You know what squat is, you know what deadlift is. You have an idea of goals you might want. From there, we can start talking about programs. We can have meaningful discussions. But unless you're engaging with your goal on a consistent basis, you can't optimize or change anything from that standpoint because there's nothing to change or nothing to optimize. It's like trying to sculpt water. Can't sculpt water unless you freeze it, condense it into one. That's a nice analogy, actually. Pat myself on the back. Yeah, if you freeze water and put it in a consistent, you can make water more consistent. I.e., make it ice, then you can sculpt it into something. Nice. That was cool.
That's beautiful, Mark. I didn't know you had that in you. Yeah, I agree, and it's like you say, the consistency is a huge factor, and it's about, for me, it's about this kind of mastery process, which is you're trying to internalize the knowledge, you're trying to actually acquire tacit knowledge, which is through experience, rather than just trying to memorize facts and research telling you what decisions to make. So it's the difference between someone who knows enough about a subject to write an essay and someone who has to copy and paste from Wikipedia, essentially. So, there's a very clear difference between the quality of those two essays, and one is actually going to be illuminating and will be written by someone who understands the topic, and the other one will just be a random collection of facts which may or may not be true, depending on which Wikipedia article you're looking at. So, for me, what I don't see enough of in other people is this decision-making process. So, people think, okay, this program isn't working for me, so I'll try a different program, instead of thinking, okay, what are the things about this program which I need to change? What adjustments do I need to make? So if it's about getting stronger, and you're constantly trying to, like, let's say, max out every time you squat and deadlift, maybe you just need to train at a lower intensity, focus more on accumulating some volume. Maybe you need to actually structure some form of periodization if you're trying to be competitive in powerlifting, if you're training for aesthetics and muscle gain. Are you choosing the right sort of movements? Are you paying enough attention to training frequency, volume, your rest times, all of these different variables, instead of just taking the whole thing and just scrapping it? What are the things that you can change and then monitor to get some sort of idea of what is potentially good and what's potentially bad about the program you're doing right now, and what elements you can keep and what elements you can reject. So for me, yeah.
Without even getting into what you're talking about, which is taking a well-defined program and holding in on what works and what doesn't work, how about you just do a program for a period of time? Maybe take something like Dog Crap if you're training for size, which is a reputable bodybuilding program. Run that for a year. Eat a calorie surplus plus for a year. Eat 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight for a year. Do that for a year and then come back to me when you're bigger and stronger.
You know what, man? It's a good point you bring up there, because I ran a few cycles of DC training when I'd been lifting maybe a couple of years, and I mean it was brutally hard and I got seriously burnt out, but I just ate a ton of foods. I read all the guides and I followed all the prescribed rep ranges, sort of recommended exercises, and I pretty much followed it to the letter. And I didn't try and play around with, like if they say, DC training asks you to do, forearms and biceps first in one of your sessions. I can't remember. I think it's the B session. Then I didn't just think, well, I might do those at the end instead. I actually followed it to the letter. And the same thing with the rep ranges. If it said 6 to 8 rest pause, then I would do 6 to 8. And you're right, because then if you don't, then that's another problem that you see, is that people take a program which has been developed by someone with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and refined over many years, and then they think, I don't quite like this aspect of the program, so I'm going to do something from another program I saw and try and blend them together. And then, of course, when they don't get results, they don't know, who to blame almost. Was it the program that failed me, or, more likely is it the fact that I decided to, fuck around with it? So you're right. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's just about engaging with it. It's not like, if you're new to it, like if you're new to powerlifting, do West Side, do 531, do Shilko, do anything. Doesn't matter. Do starting strength. Do fucking anything. See it out for a while, and just do the basics well. Do the diet well. Follow the program to the letter. Make sure, pay attention to your form. Don't go too heavy. Don't go too light. Just do what's asked of you for a period of time, and you will realize progress. Then when you're in that space where you're used to training with the correct intensity, 5 times a week, 3 times a week, 1 day a week, 6 days a week, you can fit it in your own schedule. You can train 5, 6, 20 times a week, 2,000 times a week, look after the kids, show up to work, keep your missus happy, keep your boyfriend happy, or your husband, or whatever the fuck you're shagging happy. Just be able to live your life and also do the things you need to do to get the results you want. Once you can do that, then we can talk about optimization. If you can't do the basics and get progress, then there's no point in talking about anything, because you can't do shit.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I wrote about that in an article a while ago, which was that, if you can only nail, let's say 70, 80% of whatever optimal might be, so most of the time you're getting things pretty much spot on, then if you do that for, say, 5, 10 years, that's always going to beat 100% for, 2, 3 years, and then you burn out and you throw it all away. So just getting, like you said, the basics right, being consistent over the long term always gives you better progress than trying to be perfect, trying to find this optimal space which doesn't really exist except in your mind, over the short term. And the other thing is, there's more to life than worrying about, all these little variables in your training. The people who enjoy training the most are the ones who kind of just go in and get it done and don't overthink it all.
Oh, yeah.
And I notice it's a personality thing as well. I think people who are prone to worry about stuff, they tend to suffer more from anxiety, and they tend to be very analytical people. People like me, essentially, tend to get trapped in this cycle of overthinking and overanalyzing. And it just makes you unhappy. It makes you miserable with the whole process of training. And of course, if you don't enjoy it, it's going to be a really hard battle to actually stick at it for long enough to see the results you want. So you're right. That's a huge point. Is you've got to make it part of your life, and you've got to be able to enjoy it. And part of that is your mindset. So now I kind of force myself to go in and sometimes just change things and be more intuitive with my training, and with my diet, instead of trying to plan everything out to the smallest possible detail.
Yeah, there's no where I'm at with my training now is this is like an example. I've trained for fuck knows how long now, 10 years. I've done this, I've done that, whatever. Now what I do is I squat, deadlift on bench day 1. I squat and bench on day 2. I squat, deadlift on bench on day 3. In the intervening days, if I want to do some bodybuilding, a bit of cardio, I do it. If I don't, I stretch. I do 3 sets of 3, and that's it. That's what I do. That's my program. I do a week on week, and it develops week on week. Like this week, I'm up at 200 kilos now. 2 weeks ago it was this. 3 weeks ago it was that. 5 weeks ago was this. It'll go up and down. If I'm feeling beat up, I'll drop it. If I'm feeling good, I'll pick it up. Like until I actually come into a defined period with a defined goal. So if I know there's a competition in April and I want to hit these numbers, I'm going to work back 8-10 weeks and do what I need to do to be in that shape for that. But outside of that, I don't do anything. I just train. That's what I do. I just do the list. Don't fucking worry about it. I'm training lighter than I should be, heavier than I should be. I'm doing the movement. I'm doing it in a reasonable way. I'm just concentrating on my form. And that's what I do. That's it. And this is the best shape I've been in, like strength-wise, ever. Ever.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome how, especially after an injury, which I think is very difficult to come back from psychologically as well. So that's pretty impressive, I have to say, having watched your progress, over the last few months especially. And I think for me, I've focused more on form and kind of my own sort of feedback, especially over the last year, where I've been more focused about, not so much moving the most amount of weight, but, am I executing these reps perfectly?
Yeah.
Am I actually thinking about it? So am I focused on something else, or am I actually focused entirely on the movement and making sure that's good? Because a lot of the time you go in the gym and, you're thinking about other things, and you have to kind of clear your head and just focus on what you've got to get done. So for me, I think, that mental side of things is also a huge part of it. And if you're the sort of person who worries about little things all the time, sometimes you'll not be in the right sort of mental place to actually just go in and make your training effective, because you're not focusing on what you're doing.
I think it's this simple, right? If you can get a week schedule that's going to work to your goal, and you can come into the gym or the track or whatever the fuck and just put in some decent work and then leave and not injure yourself, you're going to do well. I think it's that simple. You don't have to worry about, am I going too heavy? Am I going too light? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? If you're executing the movements well, and you're doing it consistently, and then over a gradual time the trend is up, then you're doing everything about as well as you can, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think one of the key realizations for me was that if you look back over the last century of physical culture and people lifting with barbells and other forms of resistance training, and you look at the evolution of that, many of the people who've had the greatest successes, in the sport of bodybuilding and powerlifting, didn't really know very much at all about, the science of what they were doing, or, to say the least, or, a lot of the underlying physiological principles of what they were doing. They just knew how to. A lot of people, especially in bodybuilding, you'll hear a lot of people say, this didn't feel right, so I kind of backed off a bit, or this movement didn't feel like it was working for me, so I tried something else. And people often laugh at bodybuilders and think, that they're ignorant and they don't understand anything about science, and they follow a bunch of arbitrary principles like eating 6 meals a day that aren't based on any real evidence. But you look at the essential part of what they're doing there with those decision making processes. They're paying attention to their own sort of biofeedback. They're saying, recognizing when things aren't working and they're making an appropriate adjustment, and that is the essence of making progress long term. So I see a lot of value in that sort of stuff. But I mean, again, that's just something I've picked up over years of being interested in bodybuilding, and it's something that not necessarily everyone who steps in the gym is aware of. But I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, just real simple examples here. Let's think of people who are smart, who popularize who portray themselves as being smart, who popularize sports science, who write complicated articles, who put across really good information on YouTube, perhaps. Look at your Layne Nortons, look at your Beck and Treyas, look at your Eric Caresse, look at Mike Boyle, look at who else? Shoot someone at me. You're around. Look at Alan Aragon.
Yeah, Brad Schoenfeld.
Right. Who do these guys look like? Professional bodybuilders? Are these guys as strong as the strongest powerlifters? Are these guys professional athletes? In some cases, like Layne Norton's in phenomenal shape. Brett Contreras is in terrible shape. Mike Boyle's in terrible shape. Eric Caresse is in terrible shape. He can deadlifts, that's about it. Fucking, when he squats, he looks like a fucking dog shagging. Like these guys aren't, like, if you want to look at powerlifting, you look at Andrei Milanichev, you look at Boris Shilko, you look at Dennis Wolf from Norway, you look at Carl Jørgensen from Norway, you look at, like, the people who are shit hot at what they do. Like, what are they doing? Quite often it doesn't look anything like what these guys are talking about. Like, they don't even coalesce. You look at, like, Ronnie Coleman, you look at fucking Phil Heath, you look at Jay Cutler, you look at Phil Heath. What are these guys doing? These guys are training with a high amount of volume. They're banging a lot of steroids, and they're eating correctly for the goals. If you want to look like them, that's what you gotta do. You ain't gotta, like, pay attention to what Mike Boyle's telling you. You don't have to listen to what Christian Thibodeau's telling you. If you want that end product, you gotta do that. If you want to end up as strong as Carl Jørgensen from Norway, you need to pay attention to what he's doing. You need to go talk to Dennis Wolf. You need to maybe go talk to Boris Shilko. Talk to guys who have produced those results. That's where you need to go. It's literally that simple. If you want the end product, just go to someone who's produced it. Don't beat about the bush with these guys on the internet. Like us.
Yeah, exactly. Don't listen to guys on the internet.
Nah, fuck that.
You'll hear a lot of shit in podcasts, YouTube videos, and I would just ignore all of that. They don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, stay away. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, to think that if you want to look like a bodybuilder, you should maybe just do what bodybuilders do, or if you want to be strong, you should, try and emulate what strong people do. Obviously, there's some caveats there, but pretty much works.
Well, the caveats are part of the process. It is what it is. Like, if you want to look like Kate Moss, you need to develop an eating disorder.
You've got to follow her training program exactly.
Yeah. Stop eating, stop exercising, maybe eat, then purge, maybe develop a bit of a drug dependency. That's what she does. So if you want to look like that body type, that's what you gotta do. It's not healthy. Yeah. Well, I don't say it's healthy, but
Yeah. So I think we've covered pretty much everything,
Yeah.
just in general terms there. So next time we're going to go over some actual, some practical solutions and talk about how you can get to grips with these.
Solutions for practical problems. We're going to concentrate on nutrition on the next one. So you're probably
and Airwolf.
And Airwolf. You're probably going to be hearing Ben a lot in the next podcast. Because
mainly Airwolf. Mainly Airwolf.
Thanks very much, and see you next time for PB Machine. Do you like my mixing skills? Pretty good. I'm holding my phone to the microphone right now.
Oh, nice and professional. I like it.
#1take.